out of high school in 2007, and I stayed in until 2012. I was stationed in Yongsan, Korea for 2 years, and then Joint Base Lewis McChord for 1, and from there I had the opportunity to go to Afghanistan. I went to Fob Fenty, which is built around the airport in Jalalabad in the northeast corner of Afghanistan. When I returned from Afghanistan, my service obligation had been completed. I decided to take that time and go to college. I ended up here at the University of Oregon, where I got my Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. Shortly after graduating, I decided to join the Oregon Army National Guard because I was missing something. I was missing the camaraderie of my fellow soldiers, the tribe that I had gotten used to as an adult, and the structure of the organization. Joining the Guard was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I was part-time for 2 years, and then I became full-time with the 41st Brigade, where I joined them on their 2020 deployment to Kosovo. After returning home, I decided it was time to take the opportunity to get an MBA, join the ROTC program, with both graduation and commissioning in the near future. 1 more year. I'm almost there. It's been 15 years since I joined the Army, and I'm looking forward to what the rest is going to bring. So to truly understand the meaning of Memorial Day, let me explain where it came from and what it's for. Memorial Day is a federal holiday observed in the United States to honor and remember the men and women who have died serving this country's armed forces. It is observed on the last Monday in May, and the history of Memorial Day can be traced back to the aftermath of the American Civil War. The Civil War, which took place from 1861 to 1865, resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of soldiers from both the Union and the Confederate sides. In the years following the war, communities across the United States began holding tributes and decorating the graves of the fallen soldiers. It is unclear exactly where this tradition originated. Numerous different communities may have started it, but it all comes back to one thing. One of the earliest recorded instances of a formal memorial observance was organized by a group of freed slaves in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1865, shortly after the end of the war, these individuals gathered to honor Union soldiers who had died at a prison camp in a Confederate prison camp. They exhumed the bodies from a mass grave and then placed them in individual graves where they put flowers and flags to decorate them. This event became known as Decoration Day. In the years that followed, various communities and states held their own observances in honor of fallen soldiers. The practice became more widespread, and in the late 19th century, it became known as Memorial Day. The first widely recognized observance of Memorial Day took place on May 30th, 1868. It was recognized by General John A. Logan, a Union general who had called for a National Day of Remembrance. In 1966, the federal government declared Waterloo, New York, the official birthplace of Memorial Day, as that's where it was celebrated first. 5 years later, in 1971, Memorial Day was officially declared a federal holiday by Act of Congress, and in observance, it was set to last Monday in May. Over time, Memorial Day has evolved into a day not only to remember those who have died in the Civil War, but to honor all military personnel who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their country. It is a day of reflection, remembrance, gratitude, marked by ceremonies, parades, and the decorations of graves. Today, Memorial Day to many signifies the unofficial start of the summer season in the United States and is often celebrated with activities such as barbecues, picnics, parades, and family gatherings. However, it remains important to recognize and honor the true purpose of this holiday, to pay tribute to the brave men and women who gave everything that they had in defense of their nation. So how did I get here today? Let's talk about why I think that I get to stand here and talk to you about Memorial Day. It all started September 11th, 2001. The attack on the Twin Towers was playing on the news while my siblings and I were getting ready for school. We were on our way to catch the bus, and my stepdad was glued to the TV. Me, being in the 7th grade, had no idea how this was going to affect my family's life for the rest of that and every one of my classmates. Almost 2 years later, the summer before I went to high school, it was 2003, and I watched my 2 older brothers get in a car with a recruiter and drive down the driveway off to basic training. One was off to join the infantry, because the infantry is the way to go, right? I stood hand in hand with my mom. We were both crying softly. I was going to miss them because they were my dear brothers, but she had other things on her mind. What was going to happen? Her 2 oldest sons just joined the Army in a time of war. What is going to happen to them? About 1.5 years later, one of my brothers went to Iraq, the infantryman, of course. Naturally, I was worried, but what he said to me was, "Don't worry, little sister, I'll be fine." And how grateful I am that he was. When I graduated from high school in 2007, my mom said, "It's time for you to leave the nest." Little did she and I know at that time that I would follow my brother's footsteps and join to be a financial management specialist in the active duty Army. Halfway through basic training, the fall of 2007, my drill sergeant told the entire group while we were in the field, 101st just left to Iraq. A pit had dropped in my stomach. That was my brother's unit. I had known, of course, that he was going to Iraq again, but I was busy with training and wasn't really thinking about it. I had known that he was going, and we had talked about it frequently before I had left for basic training. On one of the last calls that I had before I turned my phone over, I told him I was worried, and he told me, "Don't worry, little sister, I'll be fine." And again, I'm so grateful that he made it home safely when many of his friends did not. He did tell me to try to get stationed in Korea. You don't deploy from Korea, and I don't want you to go. You don't need to deal with that. We've already done enough. So I asked to go to Korea, and luckily I got to go. It was an amazing opportunity for me. I went from a town of 800 in Eastern Oregon to a city of 10 million in a country that I barely remember from history class. After 2 years there, I went to Joint Base Lewis and McChord, where I was attached to Charlie Detachment in the 9th Finance, and I was given the option to go with them to Afghanistan. I call it an option because my duty obligation was complete before the duration of the deployment. So, don't tell my mom, I volunteered right away, so that I could go with my friends. My brother, it was his time, of course, to be worried, but I told him, "Don't worry, big brother, I'll be fine." And I am. Being in Afghanistan changed my view of the military in ways that staying stateside or going to Korea never could. I had originally joined the Army to get the school benefits and never thought I would volunteer to deploy, but years changed that. In Afghanistan, I remember we did our combat landing until Jalalabad. I wanted to throw up, and it was hot, and I did not like it, but I was there. I was actively in a place where people wanted to kill me because of what I was wearing, but oddly enough, I wasn't really worried about that. I was always worried about my soldiers and their safety. When they went on missions, I would wait by the phone for them to call and say they'd made it to their location safely. When I would go on missions, I wasn't worried about if I would make it back safely. I was worried about getting my soldier home safely. This act of selflessness wasn't forced, it came extremely naturally. And if you ask any other service member, they will tell you that they have a similar feeling. The responsibility of keeping the others around you safe. When I would talk to my family back home, I would always tell them I would be fine, don't worry. I felt safe with the fellow soldiers. This is what we were trained to do. The time that I was there, from October 2010 to October 2011, there were close to 500 U.S. fatalities. The sadness I would feel when going to the dining facility in the morning, walking past the flags and seeing them at half-staff again, meaning another U.S. life had been lost. Another soldier who told their family, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be fine. Don't worry, wife, I'll be home by Christmas." But it didn't end up being fine for them. Knowing that that soldier died protecting the soldiers to the right and the left without hesitation. Going to another base on a pay mission and asking, "Where's that silly redhead that was here last time?" The answer that followed was silence and guilt from everyone in line, because they couldn't do anything to save him. Because he was the one that died. His family was the one that had lost a son, a brother, a husband, and a father. In reality, they probably couldn't have done anything anyway, but that doesn't help the survivor's guilt. Having a soldier come up to the finance window with half of his face covered in bandages, knowing his story well before he said good morning, knowing that while I was safe on base, his convoy had gotten blown up and he had lost 2 of his very close battle buddies. In 2020, I deployed to Kosovo with the Oregon Army National Guard. It was a peacekeeping mission, so one would think we'd all come home. Unfortunately, we did not. We lost a soldier through suicide. At 19 years old, a soldier with his entire life ahead of him thought that suicide was the only way out of the situation. Just earlier this year, another soldier from that same Kosovo mission died by suicide. These are the men and the women that we honor here today on Memorial Day. The service members who gave everything that they had to protect their battle buddies, their friends, and their soldiers. Many people believe that they died for America. While that is true, I also think that they died for their men and the women that were next to them, who volunteered to go overseas and defend their country, protect the freedoms of their loved ones back home. Not only are the soldiers who have lost their lives in combat honored here today, the issue of suicide has been prevalent in the military for a long time. Our service members returning home from war are often plagued with conflict, and sadly, many lose this fight. These are the service members who have given their greatest sacrifice. Let's have a moment of silence for them. Thank you.